in Israel, of all places, in favor of Palestine. Whoever thought that existed? Well, Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper says it does, and so do a couple, but not all, of my next guest. Joining me in studio is Professor Abe Zion, where he teaches law and mass media at Ariel University, which is located in the West Bank in Israel. And joining me in studio is journalist Scott Jenkins. And joining us from Jerusalem is Israeli liberal activist and peace activist Miko Peled. Miko, I hope I pronounced that last name accurately. Let's start with you, Miko. When you hear, we're beginning to hear in America, that there's a liberal bias against the state of Israel. That shocks us. Do you agree with that bias or not?
Well, I think a liberal bias against Israel is a good thing, and I wish it was a lot stronger and more vocal, not only in America, but everywhere. And if it exists in Israel, which I doubt that it does, then I think it indeed is a good thing. And I think it's quite well known that the media in Israel on the issue of Israel and Palestine is far more open than it is in America. And if you call it liberal, then I say fine, liberal, but I think it's a very positive thing.
Let's go to Professor Abe Zion. That's shocking here to hear that the Israeli media, and Miko pretty much says it exists. It's more open than it is in America. He just wished it was stronger. That's shocking to us that there's a liberal mainstream media bias in Israel.
It's also shocking to me, and I would say that any bias is wrong, especially that bias of the Israeli journalism is against the own state of Israel. Take, for example, the visit of Harper a few days ago. Harper said a lot of things. Prime Minister of Canada. He spoke about Israel, and he spoke about the relationship of the Israel and the Western world. And on this, you had maybe one sentence in one of our channels, and you did not have anything in 4 days, neither in the papers nor in the television and the radio. Now, this is certainly biased, and I think that bias is wrong anyway. Even if it was bias against Palestinians, I would say it's biased.
Let's go back to Miko. We'll come back to you in a second, Scott. Miko, what would you like to see more of out of the media in Israel in terms of the bias that you would like that you favor?
Well, Israel is a racist state. It's an apartheid state. It has laws that discriminate against half the population that Israel governs who are not Jewish, who are Palestinians. Israel has been occupying this land and discriminating against Palestinians, depriving Palestinians of water, depriving Palestinians of land, holding thousands of Palestinian prisoners in its jails, and very little of this is being said and very little of this is being criticized in Israel and elsewhere. Of course, like I said, in Israel, there's a little bit more openness to it, so you hear a little bit more about it than you do in other places. And if we talk about the Harper visit, I think Harper put himself in a very strange predicament where he decided he wasn't going to talk about any of these things, clearly ignoring half of the reality or a large portion of the reality that exists here, which is that you have an apartheid regime that is discriminating against half the population.
Scott Jenkins? Apartheid regime in Israel?
Well, that's a misnomer, and the activists from South Africa reject the diluting of the term apartheid as applied to Israel.
Is it yes or no? You're almost like you're apologizing.
I would say. Let me tell you something, if I may.
Yeah.
This is rubbish. To speak about apartheid in Israel.
You're South African, I assume, from your accent.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I studied in England, so I have an English accent.
Okay.
This is rubbish, total rubbish, because we have a Supreme Court judge who is an Arab. We have 10 members of parliament who speak for the Palestinians in the Israeli Knesset. We have senior officials in Israel who are Arabs to speak about apartheid. I would ask my friend here, Mr. Peled, to go to Gaza and see what apartheid means. Is there any Jew who is any possibility can cross the border to Gaza? Is there any Jew who can live in Nablus? Is there any Jew who can live in Nazareth?
Yeah, Miko, we here in America, a lot of us, I shouldn't say all of us, of course, believe the notion that if Israel put down its weapons, you would have total annihilation of the Israeli state. If Israel's neighbors put down their weapons, you would have peace in the Middle East. You say that's not the case.
No, not at all. It's a complete misunderstanding of the reality here. Israel was the aggressor in all but one of the many, many military conflicts that took place here. And so that's absolutely not
But
true. If Israel put its weapons down, we would have peace. Israel has no security threat, and the reason Israel has an army, or the main purpose of the Israeli army today, is to terrorize the Palestinian population, who pose no threat to Israel militarily, but do pose a threat to the legitimacy.
This is totally this is totally untrue.
The state is being questioned because
this is totally untrue. You know, he was speaking about having thousands of prisoners in Israeli jails, but he doesn't say that they're all marauders, they're all criminals, they're all people who have blood in their hands. He doesn't say about this. It's as if Israel woke up one day and decided that they're going to have 5,000 prisoners. Those prisoners most of them are murderers, and most of them have blood on their hands.
Miko,
this is not true. This is factually not true.
Oh,
this is factually not true. Israeli sociologists have just published.
You're rewriting history. Sorry.
Israeli sociologists have published about this, and the vast majority of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails have not been charged with any acts of violence. They're political prisoners.
If I may bring us back to the point of the discussion. The point of the discussion was a liberal media bias. And the problem,
I should say one thing about the apartheid thing in South Africa. It's not true.
And it's detrimental to our defense against Islamism. But we have a removal geographically. The Israelis don't have that benefit. They are right there. They're interlaced. They're marbled. Israel is one-fifth Arab. And so a liberal media bias downplays the legitimate existential threat, not just of Islamism, but of this Palestinian nationalist movement.
You know, Miko, I have to say, you know, I don't live in the Middle East, and obviously, and I am rather shocked from everything I see coming out of there. You have neighbors, if you want to call them neighbors, who talk about wiping Israel off the face of the earth.
That's not true. That's not true.
The Iranian prime minister does not talk about wiping Israel off the face of the earth?
No, it's not true. Israel has a peace agreement with Jordan. Israel has a peace agreement with Egypt. Israel is conducting a peace agreement with the Palestinians, and this is not true.
Yeah.
And I'll say one other thing about the apartheid. Desmond Tutu, who I think we all agree knows something about apartheid,
Mr. Peled, let me tell you one thing.
If South Africa has never been as bad as it is here.
If you are trying to refute things that everybody heard and everybody knows, and saying that it's not true, it's not giving you any credibility. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for you.
All right, listen, we're about out of time, gentlemen. We'll have to have you back and get into this a little deeper. I want to thank Miko Peled joining us from Jerusalem. And I think it surprised a lot of our viewers to see someone who's a resident in...
well, he lives in San Diego.
He does, okay.
Abe Peled, Abe is visiting from Israel, and Miko lives there. It just so happens that it's intercession, so people can travel now.
All right.
I'm in my house, the house where I was born and raised in Jerusalem.
Mr. Peled can speak from Jerusalem so freely because he lives in a democratic state.
That's true.
And I agree with you. I would tell him, go to Gaza and speak against the Palestinians.
I have been to Gaza and I didn't speak in Gaza. I have been to Gaza and I didn't speak in Gaza.
All right, gentlemen, we're out of time. Thanks for joining me. We're back after this.
Thank you.
When you step into the voting booth, don't vote Democrat. Don't vote Republican.